So I'll wait a few minutes for more people to join and then we'll dive in.
Okay.
All right, we're just gonna wait a couple more minutes for more people to join and then we will dive right in. Thanks for joining us.
One doctor said, just stay away from when you go to high school. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I think they're all gonna be the same level.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's back on. Yeah.
I'll say this.
Okay, it is now 6:30, so I'm just going to start with a quick introduction to get us started. My name is Sarah Foy. I'm the coordinator of community engagement and communications for Campbell Union High School District, and we appreciate everybody who is joining us or will be joining us during this meeting tonight. The purpose of this meeting will be to continue to inform and engage our community with the For the Kids Land Development Initiative over at the district office property. So we will be going over some new information regarding the project, and then we'll be answering questions from our community regarding the project. Just a quick overview of some of the webinar etiquette. Just so you are aware, we are recording this webinar and we'll be posting it on our website after the meeting for other people to view if they were unable to attend. For now, all of the attendees' lines will be muted. And at the end of the presentation, when we will be getting to the Q&A portion, the moderator, me, will unmute you when it is your turn to ask a question. And again, all questions will be saved until the end of the presentation. A quick way, if you have a question in the middle of the presentation and you want to submit it, please ask it using the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Or if you're dialing in via a phone, you can use the hand raise feature by pressing *9, or you can do the hand raise feature if you're coming in via a computer or laptop. Questions may be limited if we have a lot of questions or a lot of participants, but we will try to get to everyone's questions and we will have plenty of time for questions. But just in case there are a lot of attendees who come forward, we will be leaving that open at the very end. So if we could go to the next slide. So with us tonight, we have Superintendent Dr. Robert Bravo, CUHSD Trustee Stacy Brown, and we also have our development partner, Mark Robeson from Robeson Homes. At this time, I'm going to toss it over to our Superintendent, Robert Bravo, to dive into the presentation.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
And good evening to everybody who's joining us here tonight. And we just wanted to give our neighbors an update about the progress that's been taking place with the initiative that I think 3 years back we called For the Kids. And in particular, we were thinking about how do we maintain or even improve our programs with what we have. And in particular, this board said, you know what are our assets? And are we underusing our assets? And maybe we are. And so we took a study of the different assets the district had, and we looked especially at the property that the district office is on and thought, we think we can maximize this. This is an asset that we're underusing. So as we move forward though, the board gave staff and I some direction to go, some rules for the game, for one way to put it. So we can see the next slide. They're very simple, but the board told us, be good neighbors to who live near our property. So who joins us or lives near to this property, let's be good neighbors as best as we can as we look at maximizing the use of this property with the interest of generating as much unrestricted ongoing revenue as possible without having to do more raising of taxes on constituents. Now, that being said, we appreciate the tax dollars that people are willing to share, but to really try and provide the program that we think that people expect, we were looking for something more. So if on the next slide, you can see, this is just the refresher for those of you who, it's been a while since you've seen the picture, but this is a overview of what our district office property looks like. And it is a long strip that goes from Camden Avenue to Union Avenue. So on Union Avenue is the district office, the administrative offices. On Camden, right now, we have a small school and we have our warehouse, we have our bus garage, we park our buses, etc. And in between those things, we have a long strip of really what is dirt. And so in particular, we pursued opportunities to try and maximize the space. So where we're at now is the middle 6.03 acres, which is mostly dirt right now. There is some warehouse there too, but that is what we are hoping to have a residential site on. On Camden, where we have the buses now and the small school, in the future, we are looking at mini storage. And then, or self-storage is another word for mini storage. We have previously shared with folks that we were looking at the administrative offices on Union and potentially moving from those to another office building that we have acquired as part of this whole deal. And we still might do that, but at least in the short term, we're not ready for that quite yet. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Trustee Stacy Brown, who is on fire when it comes to talking about school finance.
Thanks, Bob. Can we have, there we go. Well, thank you, Bob. So what I want to do for the next couple of minutes is remind us all about the problem that we're trying to solve. Why are we doing this? And in a nutshell, we're doing this because school funding in California is broken. And it's been broken for a really long time. So if you take a look at this graphic with the bars on it, this represents how schools are funded in California. And so before 1973, schools were really just given their property taxes as their source of funding. But there was a lot of disparity between wealthier areas and poorer areas. And so in 1973, there was a landmark decision, and the state came up with this thing called the revenue limit. And you might think of it as the amount of money per pupil that we spend, that metric. And that's what that dotted line represents. That's the revenue limit. So districts that have lower property taxes, they get a state aid from the state to bring them up to that revenue limit. And that's called the local control funding formula now. And then school districts that are above that revenue limit, they're basic aid districts, like Campbell Union High School District. But what you can see from this is that even though the state attempted to bring more equity to school funding, the inequity between wealthier school districts and poorer school districts still exist. Because you see that just because we're a basic aid district and we get to keep all of our property taxes, there's differences between basic aid districts. There's in wealthier areas, they get more property tax revenue, so they get more funding. So that's what's broken. And so if you take a look at the pie chart, the way we believe to fix this is by expanding the slices in that pie chart. This pie chart represents all the revenue sources that we have for our budget. And you see the biggest chunk are those property taxes. We get a little bit of money from the feds and from the state, and then we have a parcel tax and something called other local. So if you look at those two slices, it's parcel tax and other local. That's local revenue. That is revenue that is within our local control. It's secure, it's stable, and it cannot be taken away from us. Property tax revenue is cyclical, and the state can claw back property tax revenue from us when there is economic uncertainty as well. So we believe that by expanding the slices from 8% local to something bigger is what's going to help us stabilize funding and be able to provide more service to our students. So if I can get a mouse click and show you the big reveal. If you guys remember back in March, we put Measure K on the ballot, and that was a parcel tax intended to invest in some of our strategic initiatives. And it did not pass. It requires 2/3 supermajority of the voters to pass, and we did not reach that level. But if it had passed, what it would have done is it would have changed the slices from 8% local to 20% local. And that would have made a huge difference in our ability to manage these economic uncertainties and have secure, stable money to invest for our students. So that's the goal. That's why we're doing this, to make that slice of local revenue be a bigger percentage of our revenue sources. Can I have the next slide, please? So this slide talks about why now? Why is this needed now? And it's really because our expenses are rising faster than revenue. And when I came out and when we came out and did these community meetings back in May and started this process off, and we were explaining about expenses rising faster than revenue, we were not, that was very pre-COVID. But if we look at revenue, that is the only way, if you look at that last pie chart, that is really the only way that we can have year-over-year growth in any of our revenue. And historically, we've been experiencing about a 5% increase in property taxes year over year. But now that COVID has hit and we're in an economic downturn and there's a lot of uncertainty, the best that we can hope for over the next several years is 0% property tax growth. So the best possible case scenario is that our property tax revenue stays flat. So that kind of highlights why local funding is so important. And that, like I said, is the best case. There have been times, like in the Great Recession, where our property tax revenue growth year over year has actually been negative. We've gotten less property tax revenue in a year. So our budget is made up of 80% people, 20% things. And when you have that many people to make your business work, to make your organization work, they come with something called statutory costs, salary and benefits. And so those are things that you have to have in order to have employees. So the other thing that's been impacting this expenses rising faster than revenue is that our health benefit costs are growing year over year by about 3.5%. Our salary increases, so forget about negotiations. We have a salary schedule, and every year teachers and classified staff move up a step or over a column. Not every teacher, not every staff member, but when they do, the impact to our overall budget is a 1.5% increase for certificated for teachers and a 2.5% increase for classifieds. But the biggest driver for all of this are pension costs. So when you work in a school district, you're not eligible, you don't pay into Social Security. If you're certificated, if you're a teacher or an administrator, you pay into STRS, which is a pension fund, and everybody else pays into PERS. And so what you can see here by this graph on the left is that starting around the 15-16 school year, the employer contribution to those pension funds started to increase exponentially. And so what the impact to our budget has been is that in those years from the 2015-16 school year to the end of our last school year, which was 2019-20, our contribution to STRS increased by 70% and to PERS by 54%. So that is simply not sustainable for us without finding other ways, again, stable, locally controlled ways to increase our revenue. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to take a minute to kind of take you through kind of where we've been. So the board, along with Dr. Bravo, we started studying this problem way back. And as Dr. Bravo had mentioned, looking for some creative solutions that would help us increase that revenue and increase that slice of the pie. And so that was we evaluated all 244 acres of land that we own in Santa Clara County, and this is the first project. And the first step was to pass a general plan amendment with the city of San Jose. And because of the community support for our project, and because of the community engagement, we prevailed with the city of San Jose and got that general plan amendment passed at the end of 2018. Since then, we've been working on the execution. We've been working on a 3-party exchange agreement between the Marr Family Trust, who own the Heritage Village office complex, and Robeson Homes, and the district. And now while we've been doing that, Mark and his team have been working on the site plans and working on getting the permitting and the passage from the city that they're going to need. 2020 is really the year about finishing those things up and getting ready for approval of the site plans so that we can complete the exchange and Robeson can start building this beautiful neighborhood. So before I turn it over to Mark, I just wanted to share a little bit about why we chose Robeson Homes to be our development partner for this part of the district office property. We bid this out. We got 3 different proposals, and by far, Robeson's proposal had the highest value to our community. And it was for really 3 reasons. The first is that Robeson is a local builder. He lives nearby. He lives in our community. Second is that they share our values. especially when it comes to being a good neighbor. And lastly, Robeson Homes builds very unique homes. I think about where my parents live in Arizona, and I have to I can't tell which house is theirs unless I have the clicker in the car. But that's not what you get with Robeson Homes. And they build beautiful neighborhoods, and they integrate them beautifully with the existing neighborhoods. So there you go, Mark. I set it up for you. So without any further ado, our development partner, Mr. Mark Robeson.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear and see me? Hopefully. And thank you, Trustee Brown. I appreciate the kind words in the introduction. And we are equally thrilled to be a partner with Campbell Union High School District. You guys have been terrific partners, and we enjoyed our working relationship with you. And to tell the audience a little bit about, who we are, I'm going to start there, and then I want to talk about the project and the site and how we want to integrate, the new development into the existing neighborhood, and then end with a next steps, and then we'll open it up for questions. So to tell you a little bit about Robeson Homes, we've been planning and building homes in the immediate area for the past 31 years. And we are known for quality and attention to detail, but our reputation is really a result of good work. And you might ask, what is good work? And I would say it's homes and neighborhoods that are attractive, authentic, functional, they're sustainable, and they integrate well with the existing neighborhood and really create good connections with the existing neighborhood. In addition to that, we take our vocation of building communities seriously, and as well as our desire to do good works in the broader community through charitable work. And I think we are a good neighbor, and I think we are a good fit for the district for that reason. The best way for me to kind of talk to you or show you or tell you about our company is to show you our work. So on the next slide, I'll show you four developments that we did nearby, and I think they're a representative sample of the work that we do, and they're all in Los Gatos, and I urge you to go out and look at those projects. They're within a 10-minute drive of the high school headquarters and the site that we're working on. I think they're beautiful, they're uniquely designed, and they're not cookie cutter. You won't need a clicker to figure out which home your family's living in. And they're award-winning. The home in the upper left corner, Laurel Muse, was the home of the year in the Pacific Coast Builders Conference in 2014. And that is the oldest, most prestigious design award in the United States. And so we're very proud of that. And I encourage you to go look at these projects, and you'll see how well tailored they are and how well they integrate into the neighborhood. Next slide. This is an aerial view, and I want to talk about how we, as a builder, approach a site like this. And one of the things that we do is we want to respect our surroundings, and you can see, it's a fairly isolated site. Our access is going to come off of Union Avenue. We're not going through a neighborhood, so it's right out to a major arterial, Union Avenue. But the major interface will be in those backyards that are adjacent to us, as well as how we our adjacency to the Camden Community Center and how we interface with those uses. And when I say respect, what I mean by that is putting backyard to backyard where you've got that condition doesn't exist now, and I'll show you that in a second. But also how we connect to that community center to protect the experience for the people that are in the in that park area, and how they interface with the development. Next slide, please. And these are the existing connections or conditions. And the site is effectively, an industrial site next to, backing up to single family homes, and really incompatible uses. And you've got heavy equipment, material storage, there's noise and fumes from diesel trucks. And I think that the plan that we have is going to vastly improve the interface. We're going to have, backyard to backyard, and it's just going to be much improved from the existing conditions. So let me show you what our site layout looks like on the next slide, please. All right. Well, I think if you look at this, I think that it's a traditional layout. As I said, it's backyard to backyard. The homes below and above, are going to be adjacent to our backyards, and it looks, fairly open. It's not crowded, and it looks and feels good. And one of the things that I want to talk about, is the street itself. It's a fairly rectangular site. And you can see on the bottom right how we interface with the park. We've decided not to back the homes up to that park so that the people who are in that park, look out. We've got a landscape edge along that's adjacent to the park, and then the fronts of our houses. So I think that makes a good connection, is respectful of the existing condition in that park. And then as we move through, the road bends, and it bends again in the back, and you have a cul-de-sac in the rear of the site. And it's a little hard to see at this scale, but we've got a parkway adjacent to the street. We've got a sidewalk and street trees, and I'll show you in some photos later what that means. But it's really that, along with the house design and the porches and the landscaping that we're doing, I think is really going to create a terrific street. And a street, in my mind, is more than just a place for utilities and cars, but it's also a place where people can connect and meet and stroll and gather. And I think that with these design elements, I think we'll be successful with that. I do want to add that it will be a private street, and it will be maintained by an HOA, both the front yard landscaping and the street itself. So the integrity and the quality that we start with will be maintained. Next slide, please. When you talk about neighborhood compatibility, there's really three issues: traffic, parking, and privacy. And as I mentioned, this site is fairly isolated. The access doesn't drive through a neighborhood, so you're not driving by people's homes, and you're not competing for parking within a neighborhood because we're not taking access off of it. So the primary issue will be with privacy in this condition. But I do want to mention, relative to parking, that our parking is a traditional parking arrangement where, for single family homes, where you've got a 2-car garage, a 2-car, there'll be two cars can park on the apron, as well as street parking, and will greatly exceed the city's parking requirement. Relative to privacy, which is the more significant of the issues here, is we've got some ways that we can increase privacy and address issues between homes that back up to one another by lowering the roofs and increasing secondary setbacks and reducing the number and size of our windows between homes. And let me show you on the next slide what that looks like. Now, I want you to take a look at this slide, and you'll notice our elevation on the bottom. And you'll notice there's a dashed line above. That dashed line represents what you're allowed to build, what the city of San Jose allows you to build in the zoning district. And you can see that, we are our roof height is significantly lower. It's 5 feet lower, and our side yard setback is 5 feet greater. In addition to that, the roof is well articulated, and as I mentioned, you have 2 windows there. So we've been able to, even with a lack of window fenestrations, you still have an attractive rear elevation. It's, as I like to say, foresight architecture. But you can have a great home with great design, and it doesn't require you to build a McMansion. And I think this will be a good rear yard elevation. Next slide. And this is what the fronts of the homes will look like. And this is our streetscape. And you can see that this will be, characterized, old world character and reminiscent, I think, of the best streets in Willow Glen and around the Rose Garden. And I think that it'll be attractive. You can see the parkway and the street trees. We don't have all the trees in there because we want to be able to show the architecture of it. I also want to mention that there's at least 11 different elevations on the street. And so you get a lot of variety and between the elevations and materials and paint colors. I don't want to say no two elevations are alike, but there is a lot of variety. And I think that this will be really a classic street in the city of San Jose. Next slide, please. And the illustrations really don't do justice to what we do with our homes. And these are photos of the homes if you get a chance, you should go see in Los Gatos. Take a look at the home, the photograph on the upper left corner, and you'll notice there's a sidewalk. And you've got the parkway and the street trees, and you've got the porch off to the side. And when you look at that, and we'll have the same features and the same details and front yard landscaping, and which makes a big difference. But you can see it's the kind of place that you want to stroll. And you can just imagine how people would use that porch and talk to the neighbors as they walk by. And I think it'll be really a beautiful addition. Next slide. These are two homes that we built in Fremont, and you can see the detail. Even on the underside of the eave on the photo on the right, you can see the detailing of the wood and the corbels and around the windows and the lights. And you get a little piece of the front door there on the right. And and these are the same details that we'll be putting on our homes here on the Campbell Union High School site. And I think it'll be, again, I think it'll be terrific. Next slide, please. And this is our last slide, and it's next steps. Our next meeting, we have a follow-up meeting to this, and it's planned to be next Tuesday, October 14th, and it's going to be a face-to-face meeting. We will be following all the protocols. There'll be through social distancing and so forth, and we'll set up private appointments every half hour starting at 3 p.m. at 6:30 on Tuesday the 14th, and the meeting will be held in the Campbell Union High School District parking lot. We'll have two stations. They'll be separated. They'll be manned by me and Mary Goulet, our project manager, and some other people from our company. And if you, for some reason, cannot make that meeting, we're happy to meet by Zoom and or schedule another time. It's just, it's much easier, I think, to go over plan sets. And if you've got more detailed questions, I think that's a better place to, a better way to do it is in person. And I said the meeting's Tuesday, October 14th. That's actually Wednesday, October 14th. As Trustee Brown mentioned, the general plan for this site is done. It's been completed. It's now a residential site. So we're in the development plan review stage of the project life cycle. And the city will have a city community meeting that they lead, and it'll be either December of this year or January of next. There'll be a planning commission and city council hearing for the zoning and the tentative map, and that'll be in early 2021. We hope the construction begins in the summer of 2021, and we hope to be completed 30 months later in the winter of 2023. I'd like to just conclude by thanking the school district, Dr. Bravo and Trustee Brown, Sarah Foy, and others in the school district for putting this meeting together. This is a voluntary meeting and an outreach, and the district, as well as the people in our company, wanted to do that, to touch base with the community and get your feedback, prior to the upcoming meetings, and engage, and so we can hear what you have to say and develop the plans further as we go. So with that said, I would like to open up the floor for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. This is now our Q&A portion of our meeting tonight. And we can go to the next slide to go over again how to submit questions. But first, I wanted to just, if you guys think of a question later, or if you want to sign up to receive ongoing updates, you can go to the For the Kids webpage on the CUHSD website. And also you can contact Mary or myself for the district, or for Ropes and Homes for future reference. If you guys have any questions beyond this meeting, we'll answer them as soon as we can. All right, you can go to the next slide now. So again, if you have any questions, we already have a couple in our Q&A button. If you can please submit them in the Q&A, or if you want to speak directly to any of the panelists, please use the raise hand feature. If you're coming in via phone, you will press the *9 button to raise your hand, and then I will unmute you so that you can speak directly to any of the panelists if you have any questions. If you're on via laptop or Chromebook, then you can also use the raise hand function if you want to speak directly to any of our panelists. Otherwise, you can submit them through the Q&A button. I'll go ahead and just start there because we do have a couple questions in our Q&A, and I'll just go in order from the beginning, from who submitted first, and then I'll hand it over to the panelists. The first question goes to Stacy Brown, Trustee Stacy Brown, regarding revenue. The question is, I heard that revenue has been increasing 5% annually, as is notably greater than inflation. It seems that CUHSD has not been controlling costs. I understand that pension and benefits are driving expenses. What has the district done to work with legislators to reduce the statutory requirements related to PERS?
Great. Thank you, Michael, for the question. Sarah, why don't you go ahead and unmute Michael, so if he wants to follow on with that while I try to answer this. And Bob, if I say anything that's wrong, please correct me. So like I had mentioned, the one place where we have an opportunity to grow revenue is year over year in our property tax revenues, and on average they've grown about 5% a year, which is about $4.7 million. But the statutory costs are very, and let me just add that in terms of controlling costs, CUHSD has actually done a lot to control costs by implementing a lot of really, really good financial controls. So one of the things that we do is, we sweep our budgets periodically, so that if we have money that's been earmarked for something in the budget and it's not going to be all used up, we go and we sweep those things through so it can be redeployed to areas where we do want to spend it. We've done a lot of stuff to essentially save taxpayer dollars by refunding our long-term general obligation bonds. In fact, we just did one of those at the last board meeting, and we've saved taxpayers about $18 million in taxes from those efforts. So we keep our eye on this very carefully, and we do the things that we can do to keep our expenses focused on in the classroom as much as possible. With regard to the statutory costs, those are things that we don't have a lot of control over. Healthcare is healthcare. It goes up. The pension costs are actually controlled by two separate boards that manage those pensions. And the legislature really doesn't have a lot of control over those pension funds. It's the boards that manage those pension funds. What the legislature can do to help us out, and what what Governor Newsom's been doing for the past couple of years, is that in the budget that gets passed, they can set aside some one-time monies to help drive down the impact of those STRS and PERS increases to us. But in terms of helping, PERS be managed better or STRS be managed better, it really is up to that board that does that. And there's as a legislator, as a school district trustee, where we choose to focus is on keeping our house in the best possible order that we can. Michael, did that answer the question for you?
It did largely. I understand the bind that you're in with respect to being able to control that, but in the end analysis, you're still getting 5% more each and every year. And my guess is most of the people on the line, however many there might be, aren't getting 5% more in their household every year.
This is true, but it's also dependent upon, economic cycles. So we've been doing good in the last several years because we've been on an economic upturn. But, when the Great Recession hit, we actually had years where we had less revenue coming to us year over year because our property tax revenues were down. So we've had a good trend, and like I said, best case scenario with COVID, if we all hold hands and do our best to hope for the best case, it'll be flat. We won't
I
have a
appreciate that.
reduction.
No hand holding during COVID though.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. You got me. Elbow touching, right?
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I understand what you're saying, Mike. I appreciate that, but I hope that you can understand that one of the most important things this board takes seriously is our fiduciary responsibility to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Michael, I will keep you unmuted because the next question is also yours. This one will actually go to Mark Robeson. And there's a couple questions in here from Michael. The original development had the access road along the south border. Can you talk about why that might have changed?
Yeah, we wanted a more traditional neighborhood and backyard to backyard, because in that condition you had some stub streets, dead ending into the backyards of people's homes and parking, and just the conflicts of headlights and people starting and stopping cars and the up behind people's right in people's backyards effectively just is not a good interface.
Michael, does that answer your question, or do you have a follow-up for that one?
More or less. Obviously, I have an intensely personal reason for this. Is I back up, my house backs up to that exact spot where the change is made. And so now your change has put a house in my, directly facing my backyard. And I appreciate your comments about what's being done to it, but it's, as it affects me, it's not a preferred change.
Well, Michael, if you can or willing to come to the meeting next week, we can look at the condition and over a set of plans, and if that works. Otherwise, I'm happy to do a Zoom call, whatever works. But we can be more than happy to work with you on that.
Yeah, I do have it written down. I am going to try to make it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if that doesn't work, we'll set up another time.
Okay.
And another question is that that Mark had previously stated that the existing use for the property is not compatible with the neighboring properties. And what was the input that you got from neighboring homeowners to support that statement of how the current property is being used?
I mean, it's effectively an industrial use behind single family homes. And I mean, I think that's in part why the city supported the change. I mean, it's just, to residential. I mean, that typically is not an interface that you see. And I recognize that, it's a change that, there are some trade-offs, and, we'll work through that with you. We'll look at the plans and work through that with you. So.
Right. And Stacy and Bob, also, I know that there was a lot of community input and community engagement prior to us going to the city of San Jose for the general use plan. Can you speak to a little bit about maybe like some of the input that you got from neighbors during that time, or how you guys were engaging neighbors when we first began this project, Stacy or Bob? I'll hand it to Stacy first.
Sure.
Question.
Yeah, so we, from the district's perspective, I wanted to make sure that the community understood the why, right? And that's why I went over it again tonight, to remind everybody of why we need to make this change and why now. So we took a lot of questions around that. And then from the district's perspective, we are in the business of educating the students of our community. We are not in the real estate development business. We are not in the land development business. That's why we hired really good advisors for that and really good lawyers for that. And we really just set up the opportunity for people to come in and talk directly to the people who the board had selected to be our partner in this full mixed-use development project. And so it was very intimate. Pre-COVID, you could actually have face-to-face meetings. I think Mark brought the cookies and allowed the community to talk directly to the people that were the subject matter experts on this. So in terms of what types of feedback that we got overall in specific, those are things that in this particular case, Mark captured, and I think has made some accommodations in how they planned out the site. In particular, one of the things that we did is we added more ADUs because there were some concerns that came up about affordable housing. So, that was kind of the philosophy around that. Did I answer that question?
Yes, I think so. Michael, did Mark and Stacy's answer your question?
Sufficiently.
Great. And then one more from Michael, and then we'll move on to some of the other questions. Is Michael wanted a question for Mark Robeson about what the rear setback distance is.
The rear setback varies, and we use the existing setbacks that are along our property lines as a guide. I think it's probably too difficult to go back to the site plan, so I'll just kind of walk you through it. Along the front right, you've got ADUs along there, and those have a 4-foot setback as the code is set in San Jose, but you've got the duplexes side onto that. As we move into the site where there's homes on both sides and the road makes that initial bend, that is in there's also some duplexes there and on the right side, and there's shallower setbacks, and our setbacks are a little shallower, and that's our tightest point. And we have a minimum first floor setback of 12 feet, which is, I think that's the minimum on that side that we've seen. There is a new home, I think it was in that photograph, being built right off of the property line that's being framed, not a new home, but a new structure being framed along that same edge. And our second story setback is 16 feet. And on the opposite side of the street, where the Palacio project, their setback first and second floor, their minimum is 15 feet, and our minimum, I think we have some that are 12, but mostly they're 15 and 16 minimum, and they grow from that. And then as you get further back in the site, towards the rear, where you've got some of the larger setbacks along the homes at front Castamia, and those that the ones in Palacio stay the same, but the ones on Castamia are a little deeper, and our setbacks and that edge are a little deeper too. So we kind of use that as a guide. And again, Michael, if you come to the when you're available and you can go over a set of plans, I'd be happy to do that with you.
Thank you, Mark.
We actually have trustee Linda Goitia in our attendees who has raised her hand. So I'm going to unmute her if she wants to ask a question or speak to anything. There you go. Linda, you're unmuted if you, I saw you raised your hand. Oh, I think you are. Yep, you're unmuted. I think you need to unmute yourself there.
A caller referenced our year-over-year revenue increase, but Trustee Brown might want to address the impact on our revenue that will occur if our parcel tax does not renew November 3.
Oh, yes, that's a very good point. I meant to do a shameless plug for Measure L. Yeah, so we have a parcel tax that makes up 4% of our revenue, and it will it's set to expire right in the middle of all of this economic downturn that we're expecting to have from the current financial situation. So we've placed a measure on the November ballot, Measure L. It's a renewal. So it doesn't increase your taxes. It just keeps this parcel tax that's really become part of the fabric of our funding for the past 15 years going. And it's really important because it's tied to teacher compensation, it's tied to smaller class sizes, it's tied to a number of things. And if the parcel tax were not to renew, it would just put us in such a more steeper, deeper trouble and how to manage what the new world order, the new normal looks like. So take a look. I think the ballots are dropping as we speak, and the pamphlets are out there, so you can read all about the renewal of our parcel tax Measure L. Thanks for reminding me, Linda.
And actually, the district office is a vote center, and you can also drop off your ballot there. We have a ballot drop off if you guys are voting. So right across the street near you guys. So
when you guys are voting, you can just walk right next door and drop your ballot there. Nice and convenient.
Yep, of course. So a couple more questions that came in through the Q&A. One I'm going to pivot to Mark Robeson is, how will Mark Robeson incorporate energy efficiency, i.e. solar and low water consumption landscaping, into these designs?
As I said, sustainability is important to us, and well, now it's required, but all the homes will have solar panels, and they'll be all electric homes, and that's not at our election. That's a city requirement, and so is a drought tolerant planting, and so all that will be incorporated into the homes as required by statute now. But in addition to that, I mean, I like to think that we're sustainable from the standpoint we try to build really good homes that are functional, that are attractive, and they really work, and that people don't have to remodel and tear down, because that's not sustainable and or green. So we really try to do a good job with their homes so that they stand the test of time.
Thanks, Mark. One more for you is, has Robeson Homes considered a price range for these homes at this point?
Yeah, the homes are over $2 million. And, the next question you didn't say was mine, but I would like to answer it relative to affordable housing, because I think I'm in a good position to answer it. And Trustee Brown mentioned that, during our early meetings with the community, people asked that question. They said, these are expensive homes. What are you doing for affordability? And, it was, through that outreach that we decided to add the ADUs, and because the district wanted to build lower density to be compatible with the existing neighborhood. As the city looked at changing the general plan to residential, the city started to push for higher density, and the district really wanted to, for compatibility reasons, wanted to keep that consistent. So we decided to add the ADUs because they added an affordability component, because they're affordable by design, but we're also paying the full affordable housing fee for the project, including the cost for the affordability on the ADUs. So we're doing both.
Great. And that is right now all of the questions that we have in our Q&A. Again, if you guys want to submit more questions, you can do it via the Q&A button, or you can raise your hand using the hand raise feature. Again, if you're coming in from a phone, you would press *9 to do that. We'll wait a couple more minutes to see if everybody has any additional questions. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat the district website where you can find further information. And also you can sign up for updates. Anytime there is an update regarding the For the Kids project, we will send it via email. I just put that in the chat. I think that it probably just went to the panelists right now, but I will make sure that everybody who is on this call is able to get that information. Again, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. Go ahead and do that.
So while we're waiting for any more questions, and it's okay if you don't have more questions tonight, I just want to thank everybody again for your support of our district, for your support of this project. I hope that that you feel a partnership with us. I hope that you're taking this journey with us, and I hope that you know that if you have questions, we really want you to reach out to us and ask them. We're here. Myself and Trustee Goitia, we're elected to serve you. So we are here to serve you.
Thank you, Stacy. I did see one hand raised. Dieter, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to unmute. I'm going to unmute you to ask your question. There you go. So Dieter, you can ask your question. You've been unmuted now.
It's actually Carol using Dieter's computer. I was wondering, had you done any kind of a study for traffic onto Union Avenue before this project? And is there a possibility of possibly another stoplight there? Traffic on Union to Camden has grown considerably in the last few years. And oftentimes the traffic turning left from Union to Camden is backed up all the way to the school yard. So you're talking, what, 52 homes, 2 cars at least coming out of this property at various times. What is your consensus about the traffic?
Stacy, would you like me to answer that?
Sure.
I mean, there will be a traffic study is being prepared by the city of San Jose as part of the environmental and zoning process now. And by the time the city has the city directed meeting, I suspect the traffic report will be completed and we'll look at the things that you're asking about.
Okay.
So I'll add to that, Carol. There was a traffic analysis that was created as part of the general plan amendment, as part of the CEQA study. It wasn't very in-depth, but everybody, and I live in this neighborhood. I live less than a mile away from, or my house is less than a mile away from the district office. So I know what you're talking about in terms of traffic on Union Avenue. You know, basically what the report told us back in 2018 is that that this development is not going to make any significant impact to an already bad traffic situation. So that's what the traffic study told us back in 2018, and we'll see what comes back as part of this application.
I have one more question. You're selling that property, right? And you're buying the property in Campbell. Are you gaining much money by doing that? Because I know property in Campbell is probably more expensive than it is here in San Jose. That's my question. Are you gaining anything? I know you said at the first meeting that you would have offices to lease or rent, so that would give you revenue. But your first selling amount and buying amount, what is the difference there?
Yeah, Bob, you want to take that one?
Sure. So we are going, it's a land exchange. So it's not a straight sale. Robeson Homes is acquiring the Heritage Village office complex at the corner of Campbell and Winchester.
Uh-huh.
And they're going to basically trade us that office building for the land. Plus, Robeson Homes will also give the district $4 million on top of that.
Okay. That's interesting, huh? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I don't see any additional questions from any of the attendees. I did thank you, John, for putting the link in for me for our For the Kids webpage. Again, you can sign up for email alerts there. And then I also put down the contact information for both Robeson Homes and CUHSD if you have any future questions. Again, they will be having the in-person meeting more information will be forthcoming on that, coming very soon from Robeson on how you guys can come in and ask additional questions in person. With that, do any of the panelists have any final words that they would like to share? Otherwise, we'll wrap up for the evening and hope everybody has a great night. Does anybody have any of the panelists want to share final words?
Other than, again, thank you for your continued support. And like we said, it's very important for us to be a good neighbor.
Yep, for sure.
All right, thank you guys so much again. And we'll be sharing more information soon. Have a great night.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
Sarah. Trustee Brown,
Bye.
Dr. Bravo, good night.